Hi, Ray Middleton here, System Broker at Fulfilling Lives, and welcome to a series of films about Ladder for Life. And that's a learning community that you're welcome to join, so you might want to grab a pen and paper and make some notes about the film. And what you're particularly looking for is some good habits or skills, helpful habits, and also some unhelpful habits where people get stuck. Because this is a learning community, learning knowledge and skills around complex needs. So that's when people have combinations of mental health problems, addiction problems, and other kinds of problems like housing, homelessness, offending, those sorts of combinations of problems.
4 areas it's worth opening up a dialogue about are motivation and direction in life, handling emotions, building relationships, and problem solving as a process. And we've put these 4 areas into a story with a picture, Ladder for Life. Here is the story. There was someone who headed off on their journey through life, and they were on track to get to the top of the hill, which represents their desires and hopes for life to the full, which is any way in which they wanted their life to get better in the future. On their journey, they came across rocks on their path, representing the problems we all come across as we journey towards the life we desire. They got out their ladder for life that we all have for overcoming the problems and challenges on our journey. And the rungs of the ladder are made out of the skills or helpful habits that we've learned. And there are 7 rungs of the ladder. And these are, the first rung is sizing up or describing a problem. And the second rung is handling our emotions about the problem. And the third rung is managing conflict around difficulties we've got on our journey with other people or with ourselves. The fourth rung is about asking for help or cooperating when building relationships with others as we journey together. And the 5th rung is about planning solutions. The 6th rung is acting on these plans. And the 7th rung is reflecting on the process and thinking, what have I learned and what can I change as a result? Now, some rungs of their ladder for life were damaged and in need of repair and strengthening. So some problems were too big to overcome with their ladder. And so they tended to get sidetracked into the dead end of the blue forest, which is quite common for us all. And sometimes, reacting to the difficulties on their journey of getting to the top of the hill, they developed some unhelpful habits and got stuck in the quicksand on their journey. The unhelpful habits which developed were combinations of thinking, emotions, and actions. For example, anxious avoidance would be an unhelpful habit. And there are lots and lots of these different kinds of unhelpful habits which are common to develop. And the helpful habits or skills that were developed on the journey to make the rungs of the ladder to overcome difficulties are also made up from combinations of thinking, emotions, and actions. So, for example, asking for help would be a helpful habit or skill on the rung of the ladder. So grab a paper and pen and make some notes about any unhelpful habits or helpful habits or skills that you hear discussed. And in particular, make a note of any connections that emerge or you hear as you listen carefully between different issues discussed. So I'll just ask people to introduce themselves briefly.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Jonna.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Terry.
So this time we're going to open up a discussion, an open dialogue about handling emotions. Ask whether people find handling emotions difficult to start with. And would anybody like to just start the discussion off?
For me, yeah, I really do struggle like handling my emotions. I really struggle asking for help, and I really struggle if somebody's nice to us and, offers help.
Right, yeah, so that's a good example, Donna, about if someone offers to help, or do you say if someone's nice to you, and you find that, so are you able to say how that makes you feel?
Makes us feel like, what do they want from us?
Right, yeah. So a bit. Some people might call that being a bit suspicious or a bit cautious about that offer.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. So that's really helpful. So it's understanding. Then it's helped me to understand that. Say, if I were offered to help you with something, that might be a reason why might not be too keen on accepting my offer of help, because you might be a little bit wary, a bit suspicious. I wonder what comes to mind for someone else listening to what Donna said.
Along with Donna, it was that I didn't want to seem vulnerable and let people see my emotions I wasn't willing to let people see the vulnerability side of my emotions, especially for the lifestyle I led, that it would have been used against me. It would have.
Alright, yeah.
It could have been used as some sort of manipulation to get me to do something that I didn't want to do, but then it would stir up other feelings like anger and fear.
Right, yeah. So we started off thinking about on our journey of life, we all, I think, need to ask for help. It's a human condition sometimes, but then what we've heard from Donna and from Terry is that can stir up some difficult feelings about whether to either trust someone or whether that's going to make someone think that I'm weak and vulnerable. But also then you're saying, Terry, that could stir up some other feelings then after you've thought about that, and those initial feelings get stirred up of fear and anger about whether or not to go a bit further and actually ask for help, and whether to accept that help, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyone else what comes to mind when you think about this idea about how you feel, asking for help and accepting help?
I agree. You do feel vulnerable because some people do regard that as a weakness. I know that through all my life. Because of that, I've got actually low esteem problems. If you do feel you want to help, people will manipulate you and actually put you down, bully you because of that. And then what happens is a defence mechanism. You kind of shut off from everybody, you go quiet. But what happens because of that? People think you're soft and quiet, and you're not going to react to them. You're not going to defend yourself. So they do it even more. So that gets you pushed on the edge of, say, your playground friends. Yeah, like for me, I didn't have many friends at school, and I used to just play on the dirt and the soil on my own, because I knew I wasn't well liked, and so maybe I was giving impression nobody come near me. But it has carried all through my life, and now I'm 55 years of age, and there's times now like today. What happens is if I'm being offended or anything, I can dwell on it, I think about it over and over again, and then it becomes magnified, and then it taps into my past experiences, and then you just flare up again, and that's why I kind of say that's it. I can't come back no more. I've got to get out of that situation, and that's happened either work, school, especially work. It's happened a couple of times. I've been so frustrated that I couldn't do my job. I've actually just wanted to pack up and leave there and then, and I was stopped. But that continues there, and I must admit that's my problem at this minute, that I have these emotional outbreaks where everything is too much for me, and so I think I'm kind of recovering, but then something can happen and I'm right down again, like a game of snakes and ladders. That's what it is, a mental game of snakes and ladders.
Sharing how we feel, once we've identified how we feel. Does anything come to mind for anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of identify what everybody said so far. I suppose for me what's kind of sprung to mind is that I was brought up in an environment where it wasn't okay to be you. It wasn't okay to express how you feel. I mean, I remember as a child being told to stop talking to me in that tone of voice by my parents, and then the next second they were saying, I do love you, son. So I was kind of brought up in an environment where I had mixed messages about what emotions were okay to be shown and what emotions weren't okay to be shown, which left me in a very confused state of play. And throughout the years, it kind of deepened and through school and stuff like that. Until I found addiction, and then addiction kind of solved all that problem because the drugs just took everything away.
Right, yeah. Is that your difficult emotions when you say it took it all away?
Yeah. The drugs and the alcohol and the behaviours gave me false emotions. They numbed my emotions. You know, and then coming into recovery and learning how to express how I feel and how to talk about my feelings, and which was a key factor for me. Was actually learning how to talk about them and having a dialogue, a two-way conversation about how I feel and about, is that my genuine feeling or is that just my feeling that I've created to mask the true feeling that's been going on.
That's really helpful to share. So I think one of the themes that's coming out in our kind of open dialogue about handling emotions here is it's difficult but possible to share how we feel. But I'm hearing there's a bit of a process 'cause you've got to work out how you do feel. Do you feel angry or do you feel fearful or do you feel whatever you do feel? Then there's the do you trust someone else to share with them, I'm annoyed or I'm worried and I'm anxious. And there's a learning, what I'm hearing from what Mark just said is there's a learning process of a skill of being able to identify the feeling and share it, but also then who's trustable enough to share it with in a safe way. What do you think about these ideas about?
I think the overriding mistrust and showing your feelings when we were younger, and we get moulded when we're younger on how we act within life, you know, and as the way we've acted or the way we've been brought up to act as children has had this very detrimental effect on how we act as adults, and not being able to share, as Mark's just said, our true emotions because of the mistrust that we've had. I think it also depends on the scenario and where that scenario is based, because if you're at your work and you may not be able to feel that you may be able to ask for help outside work, within the family home or with your friends, but then within work you might not be able to ask for the help. So it depends on the situation as well if you're looking at it, because from my perspective I know that I can go to the members that are sitting in here today and ask them for help and know that I won't be judged. But if I go and ask someone out in the wide world the same question, they'll look at me like I'm crazy, you know, and they'll be phoning St. Nick's to get me admitted. So
I suppose
it depends on
the context I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
The scenario, and that's a really good point, I think, about, although we're thinking about, there's a number of skills that have come up that we could kind of reflect on here about the identifying how you're feeling, and but then there's who to trust and working out, because it's not that everyone is trustworthy in the world, and it's not that nobody's trustworthy. It's working out that difficulty about where's a safe space to be able to say, identify how you feel, share how you feel, and ask for help.
Myself, I think handling your emotions, it's best to try and stand back away from yourself and just try and spend a few seconds about how you're feeling and why you're feeling that for. Because if you just go by a knee-jerk reaction and you can't handle how you feel, that could be very detrimental to yourself. And that means you don't want to ask anybody for help. You don't want to do this, that you just shut off and you're angry in yourself and you can't function when you're angry. I can't. When you're upset, you can't function properly, you can't think properly. So
I've heard you right there about there's some skill in being able to, you might call it pressing the pause button and kind of reflect on how is it, work out how you are feeling first rather than just reacting. So that could be a skill that people could take away as well.
Because I think that's a real skill to have. To me, the main concern is, and the skill I have, is develop a skill in who to trust or not trust.
For me, you know, for the people to trust people and stuff, it's about just going in there, you know, and just not sharing the problem, but like dropping little hints and stuff and seeing how they react and
That's a good idea.
stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that
That's
idea.
what I do.
So that's a bit like taking it in small stages. So you could
Yeah.
drop something in, a little bit of a hint. Don't have to say everything, but then you're kind of working out from
Yeah,
their reaction
watching their reactions.
about whether to trust them a little bit more, tell them a little bit more, or maybe is it sometimes from their reaction you think
From their I just know by their reaction whether I can trust them or not. To be honest with you.
that's a good skill.
Listening to what has been said before, that I would switch coffees. Switch coffees is when you feel something but you're not comfortable with feeling it, so you switch it to a feeling or an action that you are comfortable with. And because of my upbringing, I was quite happy switching sadness to anger. Sometimes joy to anger, because I didn't know how to handle the other feelings. So I would switch coffers bang straight into anger because I was comfortable with how I felt then. And going back to something that Dave says is when you take that step back and you look at the bigger picture, there's sometimes my emotions don't let me take that step back. I will react straight off, and then I'll go away and I might consult somebody else about my actions and say, well, I've done this, and I know in my right head that action was wrong, but my wrong head's still saying you were right to do that. Do you know what I mean? And it's just about making that, as was said as well, Mark, the breathing space in like that little no man's land where there's not an action, there's not a reaction. Do you know what I mean? Or there's not a reaction to an action. It's just having that little buffer zone that you can say, right, well, do I need to say this? Does it have to be said now? And does it have to be said by me?
Next time I'm feeling something, maybe I need to create a bit of a no man's land to do those things.
I maybe need to tell myself that as well.
Yeah.
I think we all need to tell ourselves that at some point.
I think it's a bit of a journey and a learning curve with these skills around handling emotions, because I thought it was very interesting what Terry said about switching emotions as well. Maybe it's difficult to feel joy, so maybe she switches to something else, or I know I find it sometimes difficult to enjoy myself and relax, so I kind of tend to work a bit too much. And there's ways of kind of working things out. It's that ability just to we can all reflect and learn about how to handle emotions better. So I just wanted to thank Terry and Mark and David and Donna today for being willing to come along and build up a bit of trust here and share about skills around handling emotions and some of the experiences about why that might have been difficult in the past. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I really value what our experts by experience have just shared there about that rung of the ladder about handling emotions, and how often people with complex needs find handling emotions really difficult. So some of the good skills can be identifying how you feel and then sharing it with other people can help us all to reflect. But then we saw that there's a difficulty and a connection there with finding someone to trust, because if you share how you feel, whether it's anger, fear, shame, guilt, or any other feeling, then there's this fear of being vulnerable and being hurt by other people when you share that. So that's a difficulty to be overcome and to be held in mind. And there was lots of other things to reflect on there about how our early experiences in childhood can give us mixed messages about what it is and isn't okay to share and identify feelings. And so as adults that can affect us, and we can learn new skills then about identifying feelings. Also the use of alcohol and drugs is very common to kind of dumb down and mask our really difficult emotions. So until we learn the skills of how to identify and handle those emotions better, it makes sense that people use alcohol and drugs as a kind of self-medicating kind of way to handle those emotions. And there was also the idea that a helpful habit is to be able to press the pause button, and instead of reacting to an emotion, to be able to think, well, what do I feel? And create a buffer zone, or press the pause button and think, what do I want to do about this feeling? What is it? And that allows us to create this kind of space of reflection rather than just reacting. And that could be a really good skill. So I'd like to invite you now to do some reflection with others. Remember to apply three of the principles of open dialogue. So remember that we only ever partly know what's going on, and so we tolerate the uncertainty or be curious about other people's points of view and ways of looking at any issue. Also, that we only take responsibility for our role and our point of view and the resources that we might have access to that other people might not do. And thirdly, to value everybody's point of view in a social network, because as we have a dialogue and have an open dialogue with each other, we create new knowledge, and so we need to value everyone's point of view in order to learn something new about these things. Finally, after you've reflected, try to think of maybe have you held in mind what you've learned through the video and the discussion. What's one thing that you might do differently, or one habit or skill that you might increase and do more of if you held in mind what you'd learned from this reflection? Thank you.